Hi, this is Delia from Delia Creates, and today we are going to make a chains and puffs crochet garland. To begin, you'll need 2 colors of worsted weight or category 4 yarn. The gold yarn is 197 yards, which gave me a 26.5 foot garland. The cream yarn is 194 yards, and I used half of it to make the chain outline. For the hook, we need just a 5mm crochet hook. Before we get to the instructions, I recommend making small samples when choosing your colors. You may like a darker outline, or you may find the colors don't contrast enough. Making some samples can help you sort that out before committing to a full garland. Now start with your main color, which will be the puffy centers of your garland. Give yourself plenty of slack to start with, then tie a slip knot and insert your hook. If you are a complete beginner to crochet, you may want to start with my Crochet Basics series. I'll link to it in the pattern, which covers how to hold your hook and how to work basic stitches. To begin, chain 1, then use the middle finger and thumb of your non-hook hand to hold the chain in place. Use the hook to pull up a tall loop about 1 inch to 1.25 inches tall. Usually we would cross the hook in front of the yarn to yarn over. For these loops, we are going to instead grab the yarn from behind to yarn under. Use the index finger of your hook hand to hold the yarn you just grabbed in place. Keep holding it as you insert your hook into the chain. Then yarn over or grab some more yarn. Pull it through the chain and keep pulling until you have another tall loop to match the first one. Yarn under again, insert your hook back into the chain and pull up another loop. Make sure to pull hard and fast, almost exaggerating the pull through, otherwise the loops can sometimes come up too short. Yarn under and pull up another loop. If your tension feels too loose or too tight, simply readjust. Getting the tension right is key to making your puff stitches uniform. Yarn under and pull up another loop for a 4th and final time. Each yarn under creates its own loop in addition to the ones you are pulling through, so you should have a total of 9 tall loops on your hook. Now yarn over and pull through all 9 loops, then chain 1 to secure the puff stitch, which should look like this. Let's see that again. To make your next puff stitch, chain 1 more, then repeat the process. Pull up a tall loop, yarn under, insert your hook into the chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Yarn under and pull up another loop 3 more times. Make sure you have 9 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all the loops, then secure with another chain stitch. Now you're simply going to repeat this puff stitch until you run out of yarn. Easy enough, right? But because the tension is a little trickier than normal, I'm going to cover some common issues and how to address them. First of all, expect this stitch to be a little tiring for your hook hand because of that loop pulling motion. Second, if the stitch feels off or is twisted, sometimes it's just best to pull it out and start again. See how my chain is hard to get into because it's twisted and the yarn is hard to pull through? Once the stitch is off, it's hard to recover it. You can simply pull it out to the previous puff stitch, then restart from the chain 1. Third, if you want the chain spaces between puffs to be tight and not have big gaps, insert your hook under 2 loops and not just 1 when you insert it into the chain 1. Fourth, did you notice my mistake? My index finger let go of the yarn under loop. It takes some hand gymnastics, but you have to firmly hold that loop in place for this stitch to work. Tip number 5, you always need to make sure you have enough slack. If there is any tension pulling back from the skein, it will make it hard to pull up loops. They will either be uneven, too short, or even impossible to pull up at all. You don't want to pull so much slack that you get tangles, just periodically pull enough to keep things loose. After showing all the things that can go wrong with this stitch, let's cleanse the palette by showing one good completed puff stitch. And don't worry, once you get used to the unique tension, it gets much easier. Remember, you don't have to count stitches, you just keep working puff stitches until you run out of yarn. You can leave your garland just like this if you want, but the chain outline really refines it and makes it pop. Grab your contrasting yarn and tie a slip knot. Insert your hook, then insert your hook into a chain stitch at one end of the puff stitch garland. Yarn over and pull through the chain stitch and the loop on your hook to tie a slip stitch and to anchor the new yarn to the garland. Chain 5. Now we are going to slip stitch around this chain space between puff stitches. Place your hook below the chain space, not through any stitches, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull it through the loop on your hook. See how we've created a chained outline for this puff stitch on one side, and we slip stitched around the chain space instead of through it so that it will look good from both sides. Now continue to chain 5 over each puff stitch and slip stitch around each chain space until you get to the end of the garland. When you get to the last puff stitch, slip stitch into the chain at the end. Now that we've outlined one side, it's time to do the other side. Turn the garland over and chain 5. This time, instead of slip stitching around the chain space, we are going to slip stitch into the slip stitch from the other side. Let's see that again. Chain 5. Then insert your hook under these 2 loops from the previous side's slip stitch. Yarn over, pull through the loops and the loop on your hook, just like that. Doing this helps it look fairly uniform from both sides. When you get to the end, simply slip stitch anywhere you can into the initial slip stitch from the other side. Cut a 3 to 4 inch tail. I like to work one more chain before tying off the end for extra security. Optional, weave in all the tails. I say optional, but if you have a tree taller than 3 feet, you will likely need more than one garland. Weaving in the tails will make connecting the garlands later much easier. Simply sew the tails through the stitches that match it for a couple of inches, making sure it looks good from both sides, and then cut off the excess. Repeat for all the tails, and that's how you make a chain and puff crochet garland. I needed 2 26.5 foot garlands for my 6.6 foot tree. To connect them, I used an ornament hook to cinch them together and to hang them on a branch. The result is almost seamless. For more tutorials and free patterns, visit DeliaCreates.com.